Hi and welcome to World of... and a special part 7 of my Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII Remake comparison and review. This time we are focusing on the Flower Girl, or Aerith, or the last of the Ancients, or Aerith. I must admit that when first playing the game I never placed much importance on Aerith as a character until it was too late. Whilst a main party member, once the rest of the crew were capable of spells like Cure All, etc., her use did seem to diminish, and she was probably the weakest playable character, yet would turn out to be so important. It seems fitting then that probably the biggest mistake in the European translation of the game was reserved for arguably the biggest character in the Final Fantasy VII franchise, with her name mistakenly stated as Aerith instead of Aerith, which was a combination of air and earth. Every time I hear her little theme, it is a calming presence, and if this is something shown in her character. In both games she's clearly geared towards being a healing kind of person, despite the VII's loss of the class style system that was held in earlier games in the franchise. The majority of her limit breaks indeed have some kind of healing effect. However, a fact I was very surprised to learn from the book Legend of Final Fantasy VII was that at some stages in development Aerith was actually planned to be Sephiroth's sister, to such an extent that their hairstyles are actually similar in the original game for this reason. There were also plans for her to be Sephiroth's love interest at some points, but that storyline ultimately went to Zack late on in development, and we'll see more references to all that later. Aerith also seems to be very closely connected to the Wraiths in the remake. She's the only one who could see them initially before her first brief meeting with Cloud, and seems to have some knowledge or suspicion of them. I have read suggestions that Aerith has witnessed the events of Final Fantasy VII when watching the live stream in the remake's introduction, but her trying to stop Cloud killing Reno earlier seems to suggest otherwise, as the Wraiths also seem to want this. Perhaps it is just that she will know the events to come and knows they must happen. I like to think that the main gist of the story will remain, but we will see when the full next part is released. I've left the shots in there of the church roof again to show the parallels that the remake brings, and we see how beautifully the building had been updated. Interestingly, adding some swearing into Aerith dialogue we saw there, but we see these remake scenes progress. They show early on how quickly Cloud is willing to jump to her rescue, changing from the aloof bodyguard to someone who clearly cares for Aerith's well-being. But I think we see notes of discomfort from Cloud throughout, as we've also seen with his interactions with Tifa and Jessie. I feel the remake though hams up her damsel in distress kind of ways a bit more than the original, but that could well be intentional on the character's part, but still some very touching scenes there. The descent to the ground in Final Fantasy VII is much less eventful, and we head off into Sector 6. Just those couple of screens to get through, but I think that on reflection of the new game, the surrounding piles of scrap etc. make me see the detail that does exist in the original, we maybe weren't looking for it before. And as we enter Sector 6 in the remake, we see again the beauty and attention to detail. That bust in the back there, easy to miss at first, although we will see it again later, as we have much more to do in Sector 6 within the remake. Also, the big screen is utilised and used in the remake for some additional exposition, and feeling that Avalanche Wutai lies from the broadcast that we saw earlier in the last video with the Airbuster fight. And as the slum residents voice some, well, kind of xenophobic views over Wutai, we get to see a first glimpse of the glamorous Shinra executive Scarlet, who is more, well, obviously voluptuous in the remake. She wouldn't show up until we storm the Shinra HQ later in the original story. And here's some nice propaganda dished out by her, making life harder for Avalanche and their team, and this will be part of the build up to what we'll see maybe by part 9 to end this series.
These agents of the eco-terrorist group Avalanche are currently believed to be in hiding somewhere in Midgar.
And given that this group has now attacked 2 reactors in quick succession, can they really be stopped before they strike again?
What do you think?
Well,
Have no fear. Shinra will keep Midgar safe.
Okay, time's up!
Alright, let's go.
So of course the remake expands on things and we meet some children
hello,
here and
Aerith.
overhead the local
As popular
doctor
as
greeting
ever, I
Aeith
see.
enthusiastically upon her
They
return.
should keep me on my toes.
And this little
Better
kid
than being
kind of creeped me out
bedridden.
here a little bit.
Thanks again for all those herbs. You've helped a lot of people.
Oh, herbs is
No
it?
problem. Anytime.
How'd you manage to find so many anyway?
Oh, I have my ways.
And him?
Seems Aerith
He's my
is
bodyguard,
maybe growing
just
her own
until I get
perhaps.
And you're sure he's up to it?
Hmm.
And the doctor might want to
Maybe.
stop questioning the guy with the sword that's actually bigger than he is.
Since I'm so generous, I gather medicinal herbs for his patients sometimes. One day, I want to grow up.
Seems
Here's the
even
leaf house.
the UK is behind even Midgar and it's marijuana laws, but in all seriousness I do like these scenes as they open up
There you
Aerith as a
are.
character more, give her a lot
And
more
we brought
depth and
Aerith with
perhaps
us.
more weight to the
Sorry to make
later
you come
emotional
out here.
scenes. None of
Don't
these
be.
people are here who
It's
care
on
for
my
her
way home.
and it's not just her
Well, then
mother
I hope you won't mind me
who we're
asking
going to
for
meet
some
soon.
flowers.
No problem. How many?
All you can carry. What with all the doom and gloom we've been hearing on the news recently, I thought some flowers might help cheer everyone up.
I'm sure they will, and I'd love to help.
Let's all wash up before our meal.
We will see more of those people in the obligatory
My house is
remake
just up this
expansions and
Mom should be
we'll
home
see
by
a very
now,
similar
so
job
I'll
side
introduce
mission
you.
to what we faced with Tifa in Sector 7. I left this little lead up to Aerith's house, and again I know we've seen it in the last video, but
There
I
you
just
go.
really
That's
love
my house.
how this area
It's
opens up
amazing.
as we turn the corner. So beautifully reimagined, and as we head up to the house we will now go inside to meet Aerith's mom.
Come on.
So here we meet Aerith's mum, Elmira, for the first time, and while initially friendly, this is going to change soon, but it will take much longer to get to that stage in the remake, as we'd expect by now. There's a lot more to the Elmira and Aerith's story, but we don't find out about that until a bit later on. In both games, as we see here first in the original, Aerith will offer to accompany us back to Sector 7. And we see here perhaps a little jealousy maybe from Aerith in understanding Cloud and Tifa's relationship, but again, a little dating choice to veer between the two ladies. Coming up, well worth taking a moment to notice the interior of the house. Just to have a wee quick look around, and then as we pan into the remake, just to see how exact it is in its dimensions and the layout to that of the original, which I just love. Extra effort, I think, perhaps going into some of these more iconic areas in the game.
You'll have daylight to spare.
That's true. She's got a point, Cloud.
Hold on.
Oh yeah, I still need to deliver some flowers to the leaf house. Since we have a little time before dinner, you should come with.
That wasn't the deal.
You mean you want more? Even though you've got a priceless reward coming your way? Do you know what I promised him?
I'll do it.
And also there are some parallels
grab
with
the
dialogue
baskets. Be
closely
right
done, but it does sound like there might be some additional missions on the way.
That Aerith. She's a handful, isn't she? It must be tough. No, never mind.
Elmira's scolding postponed for now. Before we head on though, I thought I'd take a wee tour through Aerith's house to just fully highlight how well this game does at recreating these well-known areas of the original. Just brings it to life, and there's a fitting comment I think for what we get to see from this newly accessible roof area of the house, and we see that Aerith's mere presence causes just so much more life to be growing around the area. Not much in the way of foliage etc. throughout the rest of Midgar.
You take this one.
In the original, Elmira will warn us off and ask
Take
us
it.
to leave. But before we get to that, the remake installs the mission system that we found in Sector 7 with Tifa,
Off we go.
helping out, carrying out jobs to help out the locals. All to build our rep as a mercenary,
something wrong?
and we have a number of
You
jobs
could
to
say
do.
that. Sounds like someone spooked the kids.
Yeah, 2 of them disappeared. They ran away after this creepy guy wearing black clothes showed up.
A Turk?
That's what I thought, but no.
It's this guy who's always stumbling around town in a dirty robe full of holes. They say he's sick or something. Oh, and he had some kind of number tattooed on his arm.
I don't like the sound of this. I'm gonna check it out.
I know someone who fits that description. I'll come with.
Okay.
Come
Mainly
on.
these missions are to assist or rescue the children of Sector 6. And there's a reference there to what sounds somebody very similar to, that we've seen before. We'll see what that means shortly. Of course, you can choose to skip these missions and move straight on with the story, but yeah, I think in any game I always feel like I'm missing something, and especially skipping anything in Final Fantasy VII just doesn't seem right.
Watch out! The ground's really shaky. It's because of the reactor. You can't trust your feet.
I'll go. Come on.
Whoa! Thank you. That was cool.
So
Okay,
a little bit of
let's
showboating
head
from
back.
Cloud maybe, to impress the kids, and no doubt young Miss Gainsborough. And as we move on, just the children running ahead in front of Cloud like that triggers a little episode and a flashback to Tifa as a child,
Tifa.
allowing the remake to reflect Aerith's questioning that we saw earlier in the original.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
Is Tifa like your girlfriend?
No,
But she's someone special.
it's not like that. More like... I don't know how to explain.
I see.
As we move on, we'll see the reason for Cloud's episode there, and a tie-in with a section of the original, which could maybe be easily missed. Coming up on the left here, we're going to see a guy in the original out of it, making noises similar in nature to what we hear in the remake.
It'll be okay.
Wait! Not him, but looks pretty damn similar.
There's the number. But why 2?
Who knows? Come to think.
Not initially obviously the same, but the dialogue in the original and the remake and the tattoo of a 2 confirm it is the same person, and this shows, to me anyway, that the whole Genova reunion thing is something they wanted to put into the plot sooner in the original, but time was maybe against them. And the remake makes it clear here than much earlier in the story that there is a clear link between Cloud, Sephiroth and these clone-like people, giving early rise to the consideration, is that all that Cloud is?
Cloud?
Another
Get
Sephiroth
together.
clone.
Come on.
You don't know who Sephiroth is, do you?
Sephiroth.
Aerith
the
proving a
warrior?
calming influence there.
No, he died in an accident 5 years ago. They said so on the news.
Maybe they did. But I've got a feeling he's still alive.
Again, this not something I don't think referenced really until
Right.
Cam in the original game. I think this
Come on, let's go.
close-up of Aerith's mouth speaking those words there certainly seems to indicate that Aerith will be
You two
shown
must
to
be
know a
very,
lot more
very
in
special
the
people.
remake's plot.
In that case, welcome to the Moogle Emporium. I'm the owner, Moggy.
You must not be familiar with Mog the
Moggy,
Moogle.
a
It's a
kid
pretty
dressed as a
famous
Moogle
fairy
who is our store
wanted
for
to bring
cashing
happiness to
in
all the
Moogle
Moogles of the
medals,
forest.
which provide
So
various
he
items
decided to
throughout the
open a
remake.
shop of
Moogles,
wonders.
of course, present throughout many Final Fantasy games, though in the original Final Fantasy VII, limited I think to just an arcade game in the Gold Saucer. And Aerith's story there, a little bit different from that Wii game's plot, but yeah, a little bit similarities to it. Another example of things seen later in the original game being crammed into part 1 of the remake, which I don't find too much of a burden in all honesty. However,
If you find any Moogle medals,
this for you guys a
you
bit
can check
cheesy.
it here, Kupo.
So, Moggy, what do you do with the medals we give you?
Oh, you know what? I use them to make everyone happy. That's the duty of every Moogle.
Of course, just like Mog the Moogle.
Hello, Aerith.
These missions all
What do you
culminate
want?
in the storyline being beefed up a little bit.
Haven't
in
seen him
addition
before.
Of an earlier
He your
meeting
new
with
boy
Wood,
toy?
partner of the Turk
He's
Reno,
my
who we saw and
bodyguard,
fought
if you must
earlier
know.
on.
Wait a minute. Those eyes. Is he the one who beat up Reno?
And what if I am?
Need to cross my T's, dot my I's, that's all.
Stay strong, okay?
We engage in another minor boss battle with Rude, who we will learn later has some past with Aerith, I think, when they were both growing up in Midgar. But for
So,
now,
you had enough yet?
he's quite happy to swing Cloud around the places we're going to see, and what I found a rather hilarious move, especially when popped into slow motion. And then another little touch added, which I'd missed before, is that this battle ends with Rude receiving this phone call. And if you've listened carefully there, you'll note that's the victory tune, which up till now we've only heard hummed by Barrett now and again, and a really nice addition I feel, and well placed at our win in this battle. Very, very well played by the makers.
Understood.
Got somewhere else to be?
Apparently so. Go home and stay there.
You know I can't do that.
So as Rude flies off to something that we're going to find out about very soon, we can now return to Elmira's, and the main plot can then continue. Of course,
Yeah,
it
that's
still
enough for one
takes
day.
a lot more time in the remake.
Where have you two been? I've been worried sick.
Sorry, we got a little sidetracked.
Dinner's ready, in case you're wondering.
Ah, great.
But before we sit down, I want you to make up the guest room.
Gotcha. Take a load off, okay?
Elmira clearly not happy there, and getting Aerith out of the room for a moment so she can give Cloud some home truths.
Judging by those eyes, I'm guessing you're a soldier.
Ex-soldier.
I hate to ask, but would you leave tonight without any fuss, no questions? You boys made a trade, a normal life, for power. You can't have it both ways.
I'm back.
Good. Now, I hope you're hungry.
Starving, right?
So Aerith's mom is understandably concerned about Cloud, and obviously asking him to sneak off, which will lead us to a funny little escape mini game in a moment. But first of all, Cloud's going to fall asleep, and we see a little more about his past. Some more inner Cloud, recalling the last time he slept in comfort, which in actual fact is something that I realise now is true. That in terms of the storyline, this technically would be the first time Cloud has slept in a bed in a home, but you'll need to play the whole story through to see what that means. It could be many years before this series is able to cover it in the time the remake story is played out. But here we see Cloud dreaming of his mother
I'd feel a
and
lot
home in
better if I knew
Nibelheim,
you'd found a good
the
girl.
town's name
One who'd make
being
sure
one of
you
those
didn't get
North
into
links
trouble.
that I've mentioned. Again, the scene amazingly
care of
recreated
myself.
in the remake.
An older, more mature girl that could keep you on the straight and narrow and tell you when you're being a silly goose. That's the perfect type for you, I'd say.
I really feel the addition of voice acting really drives home the emotion of this scene. Seeing Cloud's mum harking back to those scenes of Cloud calling her name out in the flames that we saw before in earlier videos. And now we have to try and escape from Aerith's house without alerting her, which we'll see in both games is ultimately a fruitless endeavour. However,
Don't worry,
something
you'll
that
feel
we
much
have to
better
do
in the morning.
in both
and I promise
games,
to take you straight
otherwise
home.
you could be stuck for ages.
Okay.
As we head downstairs, we get a further talking to from Elmira, and she requests that we leave Aerith alone.
You're leaving?
So, how do I get to Sector 7?
It's simple enough. Just cut through Sector 6. It isn't
Yeah,
exactly
thanks.
safe, but you should be okay, seeing as you're a soldier.
Was one.
Promise me, you'll never talk to Aerith again. Please.
You got it.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
So we head on out towards Sector 7, and we see that Aerith has been onto us all along and has already snuck out to
Well,
assist
look
us.
who it is. Talk about a coincidence.
What are you doing here?
Waiting,
Why?
because I'm not sick of you yet.
Lead on then.
With pleasure.
However, this triggers in Cloud a further little episode and foreshadowing of Aerith's fate, and he sheds a tear for her.
Cloud?
So back onto the original game, and we're going to walk through here with Aerith and see the one screen that we need to traverse in the original game in order to make it to Sector 7. I have to say though, the first time I played this game I did actually struggle for well, a bit longer than I would say you should to find my way out of the area. Is that beam up to the top right there. I did not realise you had to walk up from it. I felt it was far from obvious. That giant hand that we saw there, just decoration. Even that's going to be brought into the remake and expanded upon
A big
in
arm.
these scenes.
Kinda cute,
And
don't
this
you think?
area covers a whole chapter in the remake. The rubble-strewn path, a
great.
remnant of what we're told in the
Someone's
remake
pulled
is
up
an
the ladder.
accident when building the plate above them,
I wonder
and a
if we can
section
use
collapsed,
this.
resulting in wreckage. And again, another form of foreshadowing there. The giant hand actually now a major part of getting us to our goal, and again it hints of the likes of Tomb Raider games I felt to these tasks.
Here's an idea. I'll
We
hop
do have
on.
foes to fight throughout there,
Absolutely.
and some
I'll
of the
throw down the
bandits from I
ladder for you
think
to
the Gold Saucer prison area. You do see a little extra scene with them, but you know you'll need to play it to see it. So once we get through and eventually arrive at our goal, this little park and that cat style slide that was shown in the remake's introduction, nodding to this upcoming scene. We have yet another option before this scene which relates to the date at the Gold Saucer, and we'll see in a few minutes what some of those dialogue choices that we've seen in the remake so far, the impact they can have. And we take a short break to have some time to talk with Aerith and find out that there's more to her story. One thing I wished was that I could play on the slide in the original, but alas wasn't to be. And a lovely scene in the original game there, and we find that we have a lot in common with
Cloud,
Aerith's first
you were a
boyfriend.
soldier first
I
class,
find
right?
it worth noting that the two characters sit on opposite sides of each other in the two games here, and I wondered if that will mean anything moving forward. That flash there we've seen before, when Cloud couldn't and then did remember Reno in the church, and that allows Cloud to confirm that he was indeed a first class and soldier, the same as Aerith's boyfriend, who is downplayed in the original but has been expanded to having been loved in the remake, which I feel will form more story arcs in the remake's later editions.
The first guy I ever loved.
The remake also gives us a similar issue for Cloud, but this comes as Aerith utters his name, which all fans of the original will know, but people new to the story may miss or wonder about. Again, it's a close-up of Aerith's mouth saying that there. I feel that's important, as we saw with her earlier dialogue after talking about Sephiroth.
Wow. Your eyes.
Oh. It's 'cause of the Mako. All soldiers have them.
Yeah, I know.
But before we can find out more from this intriguing little piece of plot, we are interrupted by the opening of the giant doors to Sector 7 and the emergence of a wagon being pulled by a chocobo. Cloud notices that Tifa is constrained in the wagon, and in the original they know where she's headed. The remake, however, gives us a little more, and if you look carefully in the upcoming scene, you may notice a change, which is what was prompted from the dialogue choices in conversation with Tifa earlier in the game.
Cloud, you're alive! I thought we'd lost you.
What's going on?
Shh. I'll explain everything later. But now I'm on my way to see Don Corneo. You should head back to 7th Heaven, meet up with the gang.
But...
I'll be fine. You've seen how much ass I can kick?
I have.
Yeah! Yeah!
Oh, no you don't. You're going after her.
She's a big girl. She can handle the likes of him. And worse.
You don't know Corneo. It doesn't matter how strong or smart you think you are. He'll find a way to turn it against you. And where is she going to meet him? A mansion filled with his goons. Come on, aren't you worried what might happen in there? You have to help her. Come on!
As I said at the start of this one, I never fully appreciated Aerith or Aerith's importance playing Final Fantasy VII the first time. The remake certainly forces us to see this clearer. Only once it is too late do we learn of her true and full importance in the original, very much a metaphor for life and the danger of taking things for granted. So as we head on into Wall Market, we're going to go and we're going to see gentlemen's clubs, B-girls, hot tubs, some roleplay, a bit of cross-dressing, and an insane dance-off in what was one of my favourite sections of the whole original game, and something they've went deliciously over the top with in the remake. But that's for next time. I hope you've enjoyed this Aerith-centric episode, and we'll get to see you in part 8. Please like, share, subscribe. Cheers for now.